and gentlemen, prepare for a thrill. We have stories of the dead coming back to life to tell of the downright evil. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. The All-American Spookshow.
You been watching anything good? Or
watched Stranger Things season 3.
Mm-hmm.
Watched The Boys on Amazon Prime. Highly recommend that one. That's about it though.
Smoke, what about you?
Speaking of Stranger Things, I finally took the dive into it. I mean, it's like they just dropped season 3 not too long ago. We had not even seen the first season.
I think it came out on July 4th, actually.
July 4th, yeah.
Yeah.
And so we went ahead and ended up binging. I don't know why we just put it off for so long. I mean, I've been wanting to watch it, so we finally got around to seeing the first season. And then we just binged the second season as well. So now we're up to episode 1, I think we watched, of the third season. Just day before yesterday.
I'm almost right there with you. I'm actually about halfway through the second episode of this third season. Yeah, so. Actually,
I take that back. We might have ended up watching 2 episodes now. I can't remember if we watched the first, and then, because sometimes it just goes, the way Stranger Things ends, like every episode is just about a cliffhanger, like, damn it, no, I'm going to watch the next one now.
Yeah.
And the next one.
Yeah.
So, we may have ended up getting to the second episode as well.
So, Will, since this is a case where you've actually already seen it, what'd you think of this season? Without spoilers, of course, but what'd you think?
Oh, it's a straight nostalgia fix. I mean, there's a song number like through one of the episodes that kind of comes out of nowhere. I mean, it's very much mid to late 80s. But it's good. I enjoyed it.
Just as good or better or worse than, like, say, compared to the first couple seasons? Or
oh, yeah, I'd say just as good.
Just as good, yeah.
I haven't read too much about the background of storylines and all that stuff, but didn't they... Of course, season 2 ends the way it ends, and where they could just kind of have stopped at that point if they really wanted to. I guess they had to go and create some other stuff that's going on now, right? Separate from before.
Well, I definitely felt like after the first season, they could have, like, that's it,
Yeah.
Obviously, they didn't know, when they were making it, that it...
Yeah, how much it's going to take off.
Yeah. That's a legit pop culture phenomenon right there. I mean, it's not only just a hit for Netflix, but that thing.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, yeah, it's
mainstream for sure.
Yeah, I think they tapped all the right, pushed all the right buttons, whatever, for old school heads that that grew up in all the stuff, whether it be Dungeons and Dragons, the music that's in the episodes and all that stuff. Plus, not only that, but like my fiance's youngest daughter loves the show, and she is not going to get all those 80s references. So I think they did a good job of doing it for both sets of people, people who grew up in that era and for younger people now.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely crosses. It has mass appeal in that regard. Yeah. I mean, because, not only does it nail its target audience, basically us, people in their 30s and 40s, but it also has that coming of age type story with the kids and stuff that's going to connect with, just about anybody, regardless of whether you grew up in the 80s or not. Myself, man, it took me a while, but I was milking it for whatever reason. But I finally finished watching Dunkirk. the Christopher Nolan movie.
Oh, yeah.
Have y'all both seen that?
I have not seen that yet, but I remember when it came out and I wanted to see it, and just another one of those that slipped through and haven't got around to it yet.
Will, did you see it? You said no. I couldn't hear you. No, you haven't. Okay. Well, I won't say much else about it then, because I don't really want to not only spoil it, but I don't want you to have any preconceived notions. I think you need to see it for yourself, and then maybe we'll discuss it one of these days.
It was part 2 of the Inception, right?
Yeah. I think you just have to see it. But I finally finished that, and just catching up on a couple other shows and some movies and stuff like that. I guess before we go any further, we'll go ahead and toss to the trailer for 2013's The Conjuring.
All right, it's 9:18. We're headed down into the cellar where the door's just opened on its own. Give us a sign that you want to communicate with us. Nothing.
What are you guys?
Well, we've been called ghost hunters, paranormal researchers.
But we prefer to be known simply as Ed and Lorraine Warren.
There's someone here that would like to talk to you.
There's something horrible happening in my house.
It's November 1st, 1971. I'm sitting here with Carolyn Perrin, who, with her family, has been experiencing supernatural occurrences. You picking up anything in here, hon?
Something awful happened here, Ed.
What is it?
Whatever Lorraine sees, feels, touches, it takes a toll on her. A little piece each time.
You have a lot of spirits in here, but there's one that I'm most worried about because it is so hateful. Look what she made me do. We have to get out of here.
That's not gonna help.
This thing has latched itself to your family.
Father, we never seen nothing like this.
I'm coming with you.
No way. I can't lose you.
There's a lady in a dirty nightgown that I see in my dreams. She's standing in front of my mom's bed. Do you want to see him?
Yeah?
When the music stops, you see him in the mirror standing behind you.
Look what she made me do.
And that was the trailer for The Conjuring. So I guess before we start diving into the background information and discussing the film like we normally do, Will, what was your initial thoughts of the movie, since this is the first time you saw it, right?
Yeah, well, coming into it, I enjoyed Annabelle, so I guess I had pretty high hopes coming into that, because I'm pretty sure I gave that a pretty high rating. And it definitely came through. I definitely enjoyed it. It plays on all the stereotypes of people being scared in a house before you start seeing things.
Mm-hmm.
The spooky new house, people around corners, creaks, and where they come from, all that good stuff. So yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, as a reference point, we did Annabelle back in just a couple episodes ago, episode 12, and you gave it 3 3/4 stars. Smoke gave it 2.5 stars, and I gave it 3 stars. So that's kind of where we're at on the pecking order as far as Annabelle was concerned. And I believe we told you too, when we were talking about that one, that if you enjoyed that, which you obviously did, then you would definitely enjoy The Conjuring.
Yeah.
Smoke, did you? Obviously, this is the first time you saw it, but did you see this in the theaters when it came out? The Conjuring?
Yes. Yeah, I saw it then, and then I'd seen it maybe one other time when it first came out on DVD or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the only third time I've seen it, and it had been a number of years, of course, since whenever that DVD had come out. I mean, the movie came out in 2013?
Yeah, I actually saw that when I was looking through stuff. It came out on DVD, I think mid to late October of the same year, 2013.
Oh yeah,
so
yeah. So
I think it sounds like they kind of fast tracked it, Blu-ray.
And I thought it was great the first time around in the theater. The second time around, thought it was even better. It was another one of those that grew even more on you the second time, I think, and bears repeated viewings. Obviously, like I said, this is the third time I've seen it, and the first time I've seen it since 2013. Mm-hmm. So, enjoyed it all over again. And some of the stuff I had kind of forgotten, so some of the jump scare things worked again for me.
It's hard to believe as we sit here in 2019 that it's already been 6 years since this movie came out. It's crazy. Oh, yeah. I mean, now that they've had a number of movies, I guess, you look back and say, well, I guess that's about right. It just doesn't feel like it's already been that long.
No, it just, the universe has expanded in the Conjuring world so much so now that 6 years just does not seem like it's been 6 years.
Yeah, I mean, since this came out, this is probably arguably what the biggest horror franchise, one of them, right? I guarantee money-wise for sure. It's only going to continue to grow from here, and we talked about that in episode 12. But
wasn't this the highest-grossing horror movie at the time that it came out ever?
Hold on, I actually have that list in front of me, and no. It might have been one of the better opening weekends, which I don't have that in front of me, but as far as, like, worldwide gross, it's only number 17.
Yeah, no, I meant at the time that it came out.
No, even at that time, no.
Really?
No, at that time, it would have been The Sixth Sense, if you consider that horror, I guess. I guess that's... What would you consider that, Smoke? Horror, thriller? What would you consider The Sixth Sense?
It's another one of those that I kind of... I mean, I think I'll still kind of consider it horror because, it deals with supernatural and it's got, it's got the scares and everything in it. I mean, it kind of, of course, goes into other genres, too, but yeah, I would still kind of put that in there. At least horror thriller.
I guess however you wanted to slice it. I mean, as far as like a list that I've got up here in front of me, at that time the top one would have been The Sixth Sense, and War of the Worlds, and I Am Legend, and Jaws, of course.
Yeah, I found what it was. It achieved the highest opening weekend for an original R-rated movie or horror.
Yeah, now that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, if it fall, for sure. Because if I also have that up, it made $61.7 million in its opening weekend. So that's big dough for a horror movie for sure. And since then, of course, I'm sure a couple others have come along and blown it out of the water. Just
there's probably been some, even within the Conjuring universe. There's probably been some, because that was the first one, and it had some hype behind it. But then, even more so, I think, as they started coming out later.
It made I'll kind of jump ahead, but I'll just share this a little bit. The Conjuring, this one made $319.4 million, round up 0.5 million, right? The Conjuring 2 made $320.3 or 0.4, so just about $1 million more. And then The Nun actually made more than both of them. It made $365.5 million. So yeah, I mean, and that's not even counting, of course, Annabelle Creation made $306.5 million. So just those four movies alone, if you want to stack them up against other horror franchises, that puts them head and shoulders above just about everything. Outside of maybe, say, what Godzilla movies, if you want to connect all the gross those things have made over, the last 60 years or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we said, by any metric, however you want to slice it, this has been highly successful. And this is the movie that started it all. And it came in with I think there was a lot of hype behind it, coming in too. I think they had marketed it well. The trailers were pretty good. And, and the fact that you had that true story thing, and I'm sure people dug around to find more stuff about the Warrens and that connection to Amityville. So there was that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of horror history involved with it.
And I'm sure anyone that follows that type of stuff, like ghosts, paranormal investigations, whatever, you knew about the Warrens. Even before this movie came out.
Yep.
So The Conjuring, 2013, the one that started the whole Conjuring universe. It was released July 19th, 2013. I think that was another thing, too, that I saw, that it was one of the biggest horror openings of all time, like in June or July or something like that. Basically, like, not too many horror movies open in the summer.
Come out that summer, yeah.
Yeah. Sure. And I think I saw where it was one of the biggest, if not the biggest, like in July or something like that. Something along those lines. At least since something had come out like 6 or 7 years prior to it, and I don't recall what it was, but yeah. So it came out July 19, 2013, and it was by New Line Cinema, the Safran Company, and Evergreen Media Group, and it was, of course, distributed by Warner Brothers Pictures, who this is their whole universe, Warner Brothers. The total runtime is 1 hour and 52 minutes, so it's a bit long for horror standards. But to me, it doesn't necessarily feel quite that long, though.
No,
it moves along pretty well. Do you think so, Will? I mean, since this is the first time you saw it, did you think, was it moving along for you, or did it drag? What did you think?
Yeah, no, it had a pretty good pace. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Of course, this was rated R. Now, I thought this was funny. I found a quote from, I think it was one of the producers, or it wasn't James Wan, but it was one of the producers possibly. But so it got the rated R rating, right? So when the quote is, when we asked them why, they basically said, "It's just so scary. There are no specific scenes or tone you could take out to make it PG-13."
That's just fun. That I saw that too, and it was actually when we were watching it just now. I couldn't remember what it was rated, and I asked my fiance, "Was this rated R anyway?" Because up to that point, it was halfway through the movie, and I'm thinking, there's no real gore going on. There's a certain scene where there's a little bit of blood from that demon thing, right? When it kind of vomits into the blood, but that's really quick, real fast scene. Other than that, there wasn't much violence, and I'm thinking, what is this rated anyway? And looking back, it wasn't rated R.
Yeah, and so it must be for
terror. Yeah, it says on the back of the DVD, R for terror and a certain amount of violence or whatever. Not like graphic violence. I didn't have that listed on it because there really wasn't any graphic violence. Terror was the main thing. I'm like, terror is kind of a subjective thing. Some people are completely terrified of the opening scenes of E.T. Yeah. When E.T.'s running through the woods and all this stuff. So it's kind of a subjective thing. It's just weird to me that it was rated R for terror.
Yeah.
But
I just thought it was funny that basically they told him, there's nothing you could take out of this that would get it to PG-13. No specific scenes or tone you could take out. So once again, that tells you kind of like how they did this. It's more of a visceral kind of terror, like you said, or horror, in that like you just have a feeling of unease more than, I'm looking at something truly horrific. It's more of like, what's going to happen to this family. And it's probably got a lot to do with the fact that there's 5 girls in this family, and you're concerned for this family because it's 5 young girls. Of course, like I said, this is the first film of the Conjuring Universe franchise based on the case files of Ed and Lorraine Warren, who were paranormal investigators. This movie had a budget of $20 million. In the U.S., it opened to $61.7 million, like we just said, and then in the United States, it ended up grossing $137.4 million. But worldwide, it made $319.5 million. I think I saw too in those numbers, like the U.S. it made the most money, but the second most was Mexico for some reason. It made the second most money. It is the number 16 all-time horror release worldwide. As of recording this in August of 2019, at least, it's the number 16 all-time because I'm sure we're on the approach of It Chapter 2 about to bust this thing through out of the water. So it's about to go down at least number 17 here pretty soon, I'm sure. It was originally titled The Warren Files. Now, apparently there's another part of it, too. Like, I didn't go deep into that part of it, but apparently this thing had been kind of written and passed around for years before it finally got made. I guess the general idea of it, making movies about the Warren Files. And, it sounded like they had to do it to make this thing like 5-6 years before it, it actually happened, for one reason or another. But once they finally, gave it the green light, it was, away we go. But apparently it was originally titled The Warren Files for a short amount of time, and then they changed it to The Conjuring, which that would have made sense too if you just, if you wanted to start it all off with The Warren Files and then make, like they are with Annabelle and all these other ones, The Nun, that would have made sense too. But either way.
But The Conjuring it does give it a certain amount of weight. It's the title, The Conjuring. You pretty much know sort of what you're in for.
Yeah, that's definitely leans more horror thriller than The Warren Files. If you read that, it would have been a good name, but it also would have been like, that could be anything,
Yeah, it could be. What is it, like X-Files? Is it dealing with aliens?
Is it a military show? What is it?
Yeah.
It was shot in Wilmington, North Carolina, so not too far from where all of us reside, from February to April of 2012. And another interesting tidbit I saw is that it was actually shot in chronological order. You don't see that very often.
Mm-mm.
And most of it was shot like in a backlot or whatever in some studio in Wilmington, North Carolina. So I think there were some, I guess some with the house and stuff like that, some exteriors that they shot that wasn't in this, but pretty much everything else was in the studio. So it stars Vera Farmiga as Lorraine Warren. You may know her from, she's been in a number of things, but you may know her best from the movie Orphan, that A&E show, Bates Motel, and more recently she was in Godzilla King of the Monsters. And she's been in a ton of other things, but, I just figured those would be the ones that, one of those could click for you. Also stars Patrick Wilson as Ed Warren. Now, he's been in a ton of stuff as well, including Watchmen, 3 of the 4 Insidious movies, 1, 2, and 4. The movie Bone Tomahawk that we need to get around to watching one of these days, and Aquaman, among a litany of other things. It also stars Lily Taylor as Carolyn Perrin. She is the mom in the movie that's of the family that's kind of being haunted. Her background, once again, she's been in a handful of horror and other stuff. She's been kicking around doing stuff in Hollywood since the late '80s. She was actually in an episode of Monsters, that anthology series back in the day. She's probably most famously known from the 1999 movie The Haunting. She was also in the Netflix show Hemlock Grove, and 2017's Leatherface, which I still haven't watched that one yet.
Which one was that?
I think that's the prequel, right? For Leatherface, like kind of how he became Leatherface.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's the sequel / prequel to the remake, right? That Jessica Biel was in.
Good Lord. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, I didn't see that one either. I didn't see that one, nor did I see the Texas Chainsaw 3D yet.
I think I have seen that one, but I didn't see Leatherface yet. Well, I know you've probably watched it a number of times and have it on Blu-ray, right?
Oh, of course.
Who's this Leatherface you speak of again?
It's a band, right?
If it's not, then that would be a really good name. And it also stars Ron Livingston as Roger Perrin. He is the dad of the family. And you may know him probably best from Office Space. He's like basically the main dude in Office Space. He was also in the HBO miniseries Band of Brothers. And I think he played in a handful of episodes of Boardwalk Empire on HBO as well. And a number of other movies and shows. But those are the ones you know him the most from. And, of course, it was directed by James Wan, who is like the godfather of current horror, basically, because he's like the mastermind or the puppeteer of the Conjuring Universe. For years, he kind of oversaw the Saw franchise because he directed the first one. Because I think he was a producer on all the rest of them. Same deal with the Insidious franchise, because I could be wrong, but I think he directed the first one, but he had his paws all over it. And he also directed Aquaman, which came out, that was 2018, right? And I believe he's down to direct Aquaman 2, if I'm not mistaken. And he's done a number of other things, but yeah, needless to say, he's been highly successful over the last 10, 15 years. This movie was written by Chad Hayes and Carrie W. Hayes, which I'm not sure if they're related or not, but it sounds like they probably are. And it was produced by Rob Cowan, Tony DeRosa Grund, and Peter Safran. There's all your interesting tidbit info background. Do you guys have anything else to add before we dive in? I mean, did you see anything else that I failed to mention?
Yeah, the two guys are siblings.
Okay.
I did read that. And I read like the early versions of this I guess screenplay for the movie. It wasn't really supposed to focus around the Warrens. It was supposed to be told from like the family's point of view, which I think would have gave like a whole different tone to the movie.
Oh yeah, definitely, for sure.
Yeah.
Honestly, that probably would have felt like a lot of these type of movies. Because let's face it, I mean, not off the top of my head, I can't name a bunch, but there's a lot of movies that are very similar to this. Obviously, Amityville, which is, kind of from the same deal anyways, right? But there's probably some other ones. Smoke, can you think of any off the top of your head that are very similar to this, like haunted family movies?
Like you mentioned, Amityville as well as the Amityville remake. We go back to, you're talking about The Haunting, and that which is a remake itself of a 1960 movie called The Haunting. So I think it pretty much any movie you do with paranormal activity, so to speak, is going to be playing with those tropes, those stereotypes and things of that nature. And I guess it's up to the writers and the filmmakers how they differentiate it and what they can do to put their own spin on it, I guess, and make it a little bit different than the one that came before it. So
something else I read is the people that own the actual house that supposedly all took place in.
Mm-hmm.
After the movie came out, sued the producers of the movie. Apparently, they've been hassled, had satanic stuff left on their property, just getting messed with since the movie is come out.
Now that's the movie, or I would assume they're talking about the house where the actual event supposedly took place, right? Not like the house that's in the movie, but
the one where it actually took place.
Yeah, okay.
And then the one last thing was apparently when this movie played in the Philippines, they brought priests in to bless the movie.
That just sounds more like a studio stunt.
Like a gimmick, right? Like William Castle gimmick from the 50s or 60s.
Yeah. Almost like giving out barf bags or something.
We are not responsible for any possessions that take place during the filming of the screening of this movie.
Yeah.
We'll have priests on hand.
That's pretty good.
Oh, then one more thing. Lorraine Warren was actually in the movie.
Yeah, I did see that. Like she's in the toward the beginning, I think, and she's one of the people in one of the lectures or something.
Yeah. Apparently, she's sitting up in the very front.
Yeah. Now I believe they've both passed away now, right? Like in real life, like Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Yeah, I think it wasn't too long ago that she passed away. I believe, right?
He passed away. Ed Warren passed away in August of 2006. She literally just passed away in April of 2019. Yeah. She was 92 years old. I wonder if she was in any of the other ones, just out of curiosity. Like she becomes the Stan Lee of the Conjuring Universe. They just have her standing around in the background.
Well, I did see that she was, I think in, what was it, Amityville 2?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, well, like I said, that was another one of their case files.
Yeah.
Of course, we can't forget a Father Perez appearance.
Oh yes.
Which I don't think he's in this one, but that would have been. They missed the boat on that.
Like we had talked about. I think you mentioned about. I was telling you. I don't think I've seen La Llorona yet, right?
No, not yet, no.
That was, like I said, when we were talking about. I forget what movie we were talking about, but we were mentioning what we'd seen recently or whatever.
Yeah,
I'd seen La Llorona, and that was the only linking thing between that and the Conjuring Universe was Father Perez.
Yeah. Oh, it's that guy. Well, however you got to make it work, right?
That's true. Yeah.
It's a good cheap way to connect some other movies into it. So, like, if that movie had truly bombed, like people shit on it, and it had truly bombed, that you wouldn't even mention it, right? Or maybe it's just something only us horror fans would obsess over, is that there's a connection there. Otherwise, you don't mention it. But I'm guessing it probably did well enough to where they can kind of, all right, well, it kind of counted. We'll talk about it,
Yeah. Not to mention, it's a great little marketing thing there for people that are really into the Conjuring Universe. Maybe wouldn't have seen this movie outside of that. Maybe not. But now that you've linked it to it, I got to see it now.
Yeah, now you have to.
Yeah.
All right. So
there was a scene. I'll forget what scene it was. Well, once we get into it. There was a scene in there where a stunt person's wig fell off or something. I can't remember which scene that was.
I don't remember seeing anything about that, but that's like the Star Wars scene where the stormtrooper in the first one was doing knock the shit out of his head, and nobody. All right, I'm sure there's tons of that in movies if you ever really pour over things, and notice the continuity of things or big mistakes they just left in. Or one of the more famous ones just from the last handful of months in Game of Thrones, the last season of Game of Thrones, where there's like a Starbucks cup clearly sitting on the table in this fantasy myth-filled world of Game of Thrones. There's a Starbucks cup.
Hey man, they're putting them everywhere.
Yeah. I think there was another episode. There was another mistake in the last season too, where they left like a water bottle under the chair. Anyways, there's probably another half an episode or a mini-sode right there just talking about mistakes in movies.
Oh yeah, the goofs and gaff.
Yeah. It might be a good mini-sode there, Smoke.
Yeah.
All right. So, anyways, back to The Conjuring. So we'll go ahead and dive into the movie. So it begins with the Annabelle case, or it actually says Annabelle case year 1968 on the bottom. And then it's the same exact opening scene for the most part. It's not exactly the same, but it's pretty much the exact same opening scene from Annabelle, which came out, which was the next movie after this, which we mentioned in the Annabelle episode that they had done that. And they're kind of explaining, like they bring this Annabelle doll to the Warrens, and they're explaining how, they've been haunted by this thing. So like they kind of do a flashback of how it was messing with it's like two young nursing students or something. and they're getting messed with by Annabelle. Like they what did they say it was? Like the spirit of a little girl that had died, or someone that had died in their apartment or house or whatever, and they invited it into the doll.
Yeah.
Is what they said. And basically, then the doll starts messing with them, and they're like, "No, you invited a demon into your house." So yeah, it shows them like a flashback of how it was messing with them. Like she wrote like like they went out to dinner or something like that, and there was a note left that said "Miss me" on it. And then they walk into the room, like one of the bedrooms, and it's written all over the walls, "Miss me." So they took her outside and threw her in the trash can. And then, of course, there's a knock on the door in the middle of the night, and there's a note that says "Miss me." And then they turn around and they hear her knocking, open up the closet door, and she's in the closet, or she's back in the house.
At this point, for me, I'm like, nope, I'm good. I'll keep the rent up as long as you want to stay here. This place is yours.
You can stay here,
leave me out of it.
You can stay here, demon, rent free.
But if you want to chip in a little something, that's all. Just don't make it presents and all this.
No, all right, it's cool.
If I can bring some people through around Halloween, just kind of make a little bit of money that way. That's all.
Help me make the rent. They don't really talk about it, but basically the Warrens take the doll, and then it cuts to the Warrens giving a lecture like at a college about the doll or whatever. And then there's a cool little it's like a freeze frame, and then the words come up on the screen. Since the 1960s, Ed and Lorraine Warren have been known as the world's most renowned paranormal investigators. Lorraine is a gifted clairvoyant, while Ed is the only non-ordained demonologist recognized by the Catholic Church. Out of the thousands of cases throughout their controversial careers, there's one case so malevolent they've kept it locked away until now, based on the true story. And then you see the Conjuring title screen, which is all kind of a cool effect too. Like they freeze frame them, show the words kind of scrolling up, and then the Conjuring scrolls up, Star Wars style almost. Then you cut to another screen on the bottom that says 1971 Harrisville, Rhode Island. And I think it's the outside of the house, right? And then you see the Perrin family arriving to their new house. So it's a mom and a dad and 5 girls, ranging in age. I'm assuming probably from 5 or 6 all the way up to 18 or so. It seems to be about the age range.
Yep.
And they have a dog named Sadie, and they're all going into the house to check it out for the first time, and Sadie won't go in. Now that's your first flag right there, right? When the dog is like, "No, I ain't going in this fucking house." Maybe you don't. Maybe you won't necessarily make the leap to say that the house is haunted, but you got to at least be like, "What the hell,"
That's from all these movies and from everything that happens now. Anytime you see an animal doing something that's odd, this staring at the corner for too long,
Yeah.
Something I don't know. You see something I can't see. But yeah, there was one little tip there for them.
Yeah, context clues. I guess hindsight's 20/20, but context clues. Something, just the first of many wacky things before the shit goes down. One of the I think it's the youngest girl, April. She finds a music box. They don't show her finding it, but she finds it somewhere, and she's down by the pond, messing around with it. The rest of the girls are playing this. What do they call it? Hide and clap. It's basically hide and seek, where they kind of run and you have to clap. And then
to give somebody a hint, right?
Yeah, to give them a hint to where you're hiding at. So they're playing around.
Polo.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, something like that. They're messing around doing this, and one of them kind of hides in this little closet, and then they're kind of roughhousing a little bit. She falls backwards and busts a hole in the wall, and then they realize there's a hidden cellar up behind this wall. Then Carolyn, the mom, she wakes up the next morning to find out that she's got bruises on her. And then she notices that the clock had stopped at 3:07 a.m. And I think she also notices this when she sees she sees it on one clock, like the grandfather clock or something. Then she sees it on another clock later on, and that's when you know something's up. Especially in this day and age, this is 1971, so it's not like you got. I don't think they had digital clocks back then, right? So these are the wind-up clocks and stuff. So what are the odds that a grandfather clock and a wind-up clock are going to stop together at 3:07 a.m.? That's context clue number 2, kids. Blue's Clues. Roger, the dad, he goes down to the cellar and kind of, just to check it out the next day, and he finds a bunch of old stuff. There's a piano and just random old antiques and stuff. Once again, the youngest kid, April, she kind of runs outside to find the dog, and she finds the dog mangled and dead, like, up in the bushes. Something got a hold of it, and it's dead. Blue's Clues number 3. Then again, I guess, you're out in the country. Anything could have got a hold of it, right? So all these things could be easily explained otherwise, I guess,
Yeah, up to this point, right?
Yeah, but still, goofy shit's going on. Then on the bottom of the screen says Monroe, Connecticut, Warren's home. So you're introduced to Ed and Lorraine properly, like at their house and everything. Ed is inside the house with a reporter showing him the evil. I don't know what they call the room. I guess it's like their little paranormal museum or something. For the sake of the way we'll describe it, it's basically an evil room. It's got all these like satanic, demonic, cursed artifacts and items in this room. Where basically they go in their cases and then they just stick this shit in the room because. Yep. The room is blessed, and they figure it's just as safe here as it would be anywhere else.
And like he tells one of the guys in the room, right? I forget who that guy was, a reporter? I mean,
interviewer? Yeah, I even looked it up. They just call him reporter. So, yeah, he's like a reporter.
Oh.
I guess just doing a story about the room and Annabelle.
About the room. Yeah. Because that reporter even tells him, like, why do you keep this stuff anyway? Why don't you just incinerate it? And he says, well, then that would just get rid of the vessel, but then the spirit would leave and go into something else or someone else.
Which that's a little bit of foreshadowing about what happens a little bit later on in the movie, to an extent. Like, it wouldn't do you any good, right? And then, of course, the Annabelle doll is in, and the reporter asks him about the Annabelle doll, whatever. And then they hear something, they turn around, and the Warren's daughter, Judy, is hiding in there. Which, why in the hell you want to mess around in the evil room? I guess kids and their curiosity, right? But I think if I was stupid enough to have an evil room in my house, I'd probably beat the shit out of my kids who went in there.
Yeah, the key or whatever, the access to the room. Well, I know that he was in the room at that point, but
yeah, I'm
key and access to the room would definitely be limited.
Yeah, no doubt. That's like if you think the keys to the liquor cabinet are tough to attain. How about the keys to the devil room?
Yeah, I think if I had a collection like this, I'd buy out like one of those old banks. And guess what's
in the vaults? It's in the vault.
Oh, I can guarantee you this much though: it wouldn't be in my house. It'd be off premises. Like it would at least be a shed on the back of the property. I wouldn't sleep under the same roof as this shit. But regardless, that's the Warrens for you. And that's legit too, right? I mean, this is a real room. Like it's not just for the movie. Yeah, like they had an evil room.
And I assume it's still there being curated by someone. Now
I would hope so.
I know they have the daughter, but I don't know. But I know the room was mentioned. It's there still.
Yeah, I would hope that if they've gone through the trouble of collecting these artifacts and guarding this room, that they at least had it in their will that there would be some safe measures going down, so
that they get distributed to family members they don't care that much for. No, not
so it's not like as soon as she died, it's like releasing the containment unit in Ghostbusters.
It's time to refresh. For your convenience, we have an attractive refreshment stand with a parade of items to tempt your taste. Hot buttered popcorn, golden good and fresh from the popper. Your favorite candies, wholesome and rich and full of flavor. Ice cream and other good things to eat. Plus, ice-cold Coca-Cola. So bright, so bracing, with a taste and tingle all its own.
And the Annabelle doll goes to Uncle John.
Yeah.
And instead of miss me letters, everybody's getting see you soon.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's that. And I still haven't seen the new, but a slight digression. I still haven't seen the new Annabelle movie, Annabelle Comes Home. But it's basically the premise of that movie is all the shit in that room starts getting loose, right? It's not directly about Annabelle. I think the premise of that one is the Warrens' evil room has been let loose a little bit. Like I said, I haven't seen it yet, but I definitely want to check it out. Anyways, back to the movie. Ed finds Judy hiding in the room, and he kind of takes her back out of there, and he's talking to Lorraine. And then apparently they have another case, or the priest or someone is called, and there's another case, and he doesn't want to take Lorraine on it because he's worried about the toll that it's taking on her, doing these cases. So later on that night, they're asleep and back at the parents' house, and Christine wakes up and she feels a tug at her foot. And she wakes up and she blames her sister Nancy for it, and then she says something about quit farting because it stinks in here. So, you kind of like, once again, it's another one of the Blues Clues, right? But, they kind of, all right, whatever. Then later that night, or I guess kind of at the same time, the dad, Roger, he hears noises, and he's looking around the house and doesn't really see anything, and then he sees one of the daughters, Cindy, she's sleepwalking, and she's like walking into this closet. There's like a chifforobe or something, a closet in the room that was there when they moved in. And she's just kind of like banging her head up against it as she's sleepwalking. So he just kind of guides her back to the bed. Don't wake her up, the old, don't wake up somebody that's sleepwalking thing. Next morning, Roger realizes that Carolyn has more bruises on her. More context clues, something's going on. These unexplained bruises on Mom. The youngest girl, April, she's talking to Rory. She says his name is Rory. I guess at this point you're assuming it's just a ghost in the house or something. Maybe it's her imaginary friend.
Yeah.
But she says she's talking to Rory, and she's got this little music box, and she says if you look into the little mirror in the music box, and I guess what she says, when the music stops, you can see him behind you or something. So she's kind of, she's explaining this to her mom, Carolyn, and she's kind of looking into the box, and it's spinning, and the music's playing, then it stops, and you kind of freeze there for a minute, and then April jumps up and scares her, so you don't really see anything. Well, once again, the effective jump scare, they kind of get you. It's almost like those things on the internet where they get you to like, look here, you look closely, you'll see Michael Jackson's ghost. And then when you lean in to look, you're like, it just scares the shit out of you. It's almost like that. Like you're kind of like, you're waiting for the music to stop, and then it kind of takes a pause. There's no music, there's no anything, and you're kind of like leaning in, and then the mom, Carolyn, and April, now she wants to play the hide and clap game. So because apparently the bigger girls don't ever let her play, so mom's playing with her, and April goes and hides, and then she's clapping, and then mom walks into the bedroom, and she hears the clap in the closet that's in there, and she knows for sure, like, she's in there, and this was a pretty cool little scene too, where like, the hand, like the closet door's open, so she's like, ha, I got you, but she's still blindfolded, and then the hands come out of the closet and make the clap noise, and then at that point, she goes over to the closet and like starts digging, and then she hears April behind her. She's like, "What?" Pulls the blindfold off, and starts looking through the closet, and like nothing's there.
I think at this point too, the audience, from what I'm correct me if I'm wrong, I think you also are not sure whether that's April or not at that point, because you hear the clap from somewhere in the house like she does, but not necessarily where it's coming from. First.
You don't know that it's not her until April runs past her in the background.
Yeah. The same time she notices that.
Then you're fuck, that is not April in that closet.
Well, I don't know, man. The arms that came out of there were a lot bigger than.
I think
and knowing the type of movie that it is, probably not the daughter.
You put two and two together, but I'm pretty sure you're to assume it's the little boy in the house, Rory, right? The ghost or whatever. That playing the game too.
Yeah, playing the game.
Or just fucking with them.
And there again, all right, well, this is your house.
Rory, that's your name, right? You can have it. I don't need anything. I mean, anything at all from this house. You can take it.
I will literally go anywhere else but here.
Yeah. And never mention that any of this happened ever again.
You're going to play the clapping game, just put these mittens on real quick.
So now,
by the way, never playing the clapping game.
No, they can't get enough of this clap game, apparently. So now, fast forward to the night. Everybody's asleep, and once again, Christine blames her sister Nancy for grabbing her feet and yanking her. And this time she gets pulled pretty hard and realizes it's not her. It's not her sister doing it. So she kind of looks down the edge of the bed, didn't see anything. Obviously looks over at Nancy, she's asleep. And then she fully looks completely under the bed. And this was a cool photography trick, where they kind of flipped it.
Yeah.
Obviously it's upside down, but the tracking, or I don't know what you would call it, the turn that they did with the camera, where they basically flipped the shot, was pretty cool. Yeah. But she's looking under the bed and sees something, I guess, and then she rises back up. That's when they do the flip trick with the camera.
Yeah, I think it was the door slowly opening.
Yeah, the door kind of slowly. Actually, I think it's kind of I think it's open, right?
Yeah.
But then it starts to kind of slow. Yeah, it starts to kind of close, and she sees something behind the door, but you can't really. The audience can't really tell if there's anything back there. But she says she sees someone behind the door. Her sister Nancy wakes up and She actually gets up to look behind the door, doesn't see anything, and she turns around and she's like, I don't see anything. And then Christine's like, no, it's standing right behind you. And then all of a sudden,
that little girl right there, the one that stayed in the bed, God, she played that scene so good.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you believe her.
Because, like, there's nothing to see there, and she's playing it, like, so intense. You're, like, sitting on the edge of your seat, like,
yeah.
What the
Yeah, you're trying to squint into the shadows. Is there something back there?
Yeah. Like, you can't see any. The audience once again can't see anything.
Yeah.
She swears up and down there's somebody standing right behind her sister, and then all of a sudden the door slams shut, and then they start screaming.
As one would.
Yeah, obviously. So the parents come busting in after the door slams, and they start screaming. They don't see anything, but then Christine's freaking out, and she says that whoever it was told her that it wants her family dead. So now I think this is kind of where it starts ratcheting up, right? Like,
yeah, everything gets to be a bit more intense.
Yeah. Now you know something evil is afoot for sure. Where up to this point, it's just kind of jump scare type stuff, but now you know something's going on in this house. Carolyn, the mom, she's at night. I think this is after like the dad, like he's like a truck driver or something, right? Mm-hmm. He has a job, so he's out. He's not there. So Carolyn's by herself there with the girls at home, and she hears the clap game. She's like, "All right, girls, it's late. Y'all need to go to bed." She checks on all the girls, and they're all asleep. So then you start hearing I guess she hears the claps throughout the house, and then all of a sudden like they have a bunch of pictures, like at least a dozen or so, a whole row of pictures going down the steps, and they all just fall all at once and just crash all over the steps. And so she goes downstairs to check it out, and then the cellar door I think is open, and then she hears that piano down in the cellar go dum dum dum.
Yeah, the old out-of-tune piano that was introduced in the scene earlier when they moved.
Yeah, when they found the cellar. Yeah. So she kind of looks down there, doesn't see anything, and says, "All right, whoever's down there, I'm going to call the cops," whatever the hell she says. And then the door shuts and she falls down the steps. So now she's basically trapped down in the cellar. And then a ball comes out of nowhere and like bounces by itself, like out of the cellar, or in the cellar, but like out of like this heap of shit in the corner. Yeah. A ball comes bouncing by itself. And she hears giggles or laughs or whatever. And then, of course, the one light bulb that's hanging there, it blows out. So she has to light a match in the dark. She kind of creeping back up the steps. And then all of a sudden you see a pair of hands come up behind her head. And oh, shit! Yeah,
that was very effective in the movie theater. I mean, it's effective outside the movie theater, but definitely in the movie theater.
Yeah.
And by the way, those two claps are my last two heartbeats.
Yeah, oh yeah. All they'll find me is they'll find me dead at the bottom of the steps in a heap of my own shit. So she's in there still locked up, but you hear the clap. Meanwhile, basically, you cut to the next scene, but this is basically going on at the same time. Cindy is up there sleepwalking again. This time she's walking into she's doing the same bit where she's sleepwalking, but she's like banging her head against the closet. Then the older sister, Andrea, grabs her and lays her down. Then the closet starts knocking again, even though Cindy's laying in the bed. Then, like, Andrea kind of slowly makes her way over there, and then Cindy sits straight up in the bed, like Undertaker style, and like yells or something. And then you see like this damn ghoul sitting on top of the closet, and it jumps on top of Andrea and starts attacking her. And then that's when everybody busts in. And I'm assuming during this, that's when Carolyn gets out of the cellar too. For all this.
Well, I thought that was when the dad pulled up from home.
Yeah, you're right. Like he comes home. Like I guess he gets her out of there, and then they run upstairs to see what the hell's going on. So once again, now pure evil has arrived. Right? There's no doubt about it now.
And they decided to start living in the living room. No.
Yeah. Well. I guess that's the least you could do. I'm out the door, but at least let's all sleep in the same room. I'll give them that.
We've got all our money tied up in this house. Hey, I believe they had credit cards back then, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did. Or at least credit lines.
Well, the dad's got a rig. I assume he's got a bed in the rig. We'll just park it, somewhere way down the road, like the next county.
Yeah, this is Rhode Island.
Country, wherever.
Yeah.
This is Rhode Island. I'm going to California. So now you cut to the next scene. You're at the Massachusetts Western University, Wakefield. That's what it says on the bottom of the screens. And the Warrens, once again, are giving another lecture about exorcism. And they kind of like a show of past exorcism up on the screen. So Carolyn, the mom, is there. And she goes up to the Warrens afterwards and asks them for help, like kind of briefly tells them what's going on and asks them for help. So they agree. So they eventually the Warrens arrive to kind of inspect the house. There's, kind of this long scene where they're kind of walking through, like they meet the girls and the dad and everything, and they just kind of see where things have happened in the house. And then the little girl, April, shows Lorraine that music box. And she's doing the same bit where she's looking at the mirror, like, when the music stops, you'll see something. And then she actually sees Rory, the ghost, or whatever, for a brief second there. So she kind of looks, behind her, doesn't see anything. So, after kind of the tour of the house, she goes outside, and there's a tree out, like, there's kind of like the house, and then there's a big yard, and there's like a tree with a huge branch on it, and then there's like a pond a little bit beyond that. So she's kind of standing underneath that tree looking out at the pond, and she hears something and turns around and sees the body of someone hanging from the tree. And then that's kind of when they do the recap of like, you got something going on here. As soon as I walked in, I saw like a dark spirit behind the mom. I saw the same spirit behind the girls with some other shit in the house, right, that she pointed out. Like, so she sees all this in the house. And they agree to help the parents. Like, basically they say, all right, you need an exorcism of this house, but we have to get proof and send it to the Catholic, or just show the Catholic Church, so they'll send in some priests to do the exorcism. So they go home, and the Warrens do, and they start doing some research. And then I think this is when they point out that basically it was like Bathsheba, like some Salem witch or something, right? Which I think I did briefly see that that was part of the true part of it too, like that they came to the conclusion that this was the spirit or demon or whatever of this witch that apparently had died in the Salem witch trials. And then they're kind of sitting there talking about this, comparing the research notes or whatever. And then like Ed Warren has a tape recorder that he brings in there, and then he plays the tape, and like, what was it? The mom? You couldn't hear the mom's voice.
Yeah.
So like, I'm talking to her. He would ask her a question, and then you couldn't hear anything. Yeah. Which that's pretty messed up, right? But then like, so he cuts it off, and they're talking about this, and all of a sudden the tape recorder starts playing by itself. And it's like it's like talking backwards, like Paul is dead, number 9, whatever the hell it's saying.
Red.
Yeah, whatever it's saying. Like, there's clearly some crazy shit, and they're just sitting there looking at it, like, well, that's Friday night for you, Me, once again, I'm shitting myself, throwing the tape in the fire, and then running away.
They're sitting there. Is this weird, or is this?
So then you cut to Team Warren, the Warrens and like a couple of their assistants. One of them is like a cop, like a off-duty cop or something. They come to set up. So there's like this setup montage where they're setting up cameras and whatnot, like early 70s style cameras and shit, everywhere. And so they can capture if anything happens. And they have like a little thermometer thing. So if like the temperature drops, it'll snap a picture and all this stuff, paranormal investigation type gear. So then like they're setting up, and like it was funny, like that one of the little bell rings and like a door opens, and it turns out it's like the cop and they're taking a shit, and he comes out and he's like, what?
Had to go.
Meanwhile they're all like, whoa, it's a ghost.
Ooh, it stinks in there. I wouldn't go in there, man.
I smell that smell again. That smell.
It smells like death.
Is that sulfur? No.
It smells like the pits of hell itself. Nah, man, I just take a shit.
Man, I wouldn't have any more milk anymore, dude. I think you're lactose intolerant.
I wouldn't go in there for 15 to 35 minutes. Oh, my bad.
Somebody open a window.
We need a young priest and an old priest. Oh, too close to the vest here? My bad. So then a little bit later on, the cellar door actually opens by itself. So they grab all their gear and they go downstairs to kind of like record the sounds and stuff to see if they don't really see anything. And then the door slams shut, and that kind of freaks. Like when they go out of the cellar, they haven't really seen anything, and then all of a sudden the cellar door slams shut by itself. So they kind of stay there for the night. And the next morning, Lorraine is out like doing the parents' laundry, as the mom is upstairs like taking a nap, because it's been a long night. Then the laundry, like it's a bunch of sheets and stuff hanging off a laundry line outside. All of a sudden, like storm clouds roll in. It's really windy, and one of the sheets flies off, and then it like flies. It lands onto like an invisible figure standing there. Like for a brief moment, it kind of like hits like somebody standing there, and then it flies away. goes up and hits the window upstairs, and then it falls down, and you see somebody standing in the window of the bedroom where Carolyn is sleeping. So Lorraine's like, oh shit, and runs into the house to see what's going on. Carolyn is in there asleep, and then a bruise appears on her arm, like, you know, an invisible hand is grabbing her arm, and you can see the bruise rise up on her arm. And then she wakes up and screams and looks up, and there's the demon, I guess Bathsheba, is up above, like hovering over the bed, kind of like almost like vomits her spirit into Carolyn. This might be a good time to mention too. There was a lot of scenes in here to me that kind of reminded me of Evil Dead, or at least the Sam Raimi way of doing things.
True. Even the makeup on some of the like
like
Bathsheba spirit above the Bathsheba's makeup. Very much Evil Deadish.
It very much reminded me of Evil Dead, or just Sam Raimi's work. Or particularly, especially the demon like throwing up in her mouth.
Yeah.
Holy shit! Drag Me to Hell.
Yes.
Drag Me to Hell.
Yeah.
Now I can't wait till we watch that movie. Just talk about the sheer amount of vomiting into someone's mouth that happens in that movie. But yeah, it kind of reminded me of that. If you've seen that. So then, like Lorraine, so she gets like this demon yaks in her mouth or whatever, and then Lorraine comes busting in. And then Carolyn's like, comes out of the bathroom and acts like nothing happened. So once again, now, like she's done been possessed, and now, she's trying to play it off. So then you go outside, and Ed Warren is out fixing this car. Like he's got like an old Chevy or something, that he wants to work on. And he tells Roger, who walks up, while he's fixing the car, about Lorraine seeing something horrible, like in this exorcism that they did. And they kind of show a flashback of like this guy getting exorcised or whatever, like grabs a hold of her, and she looks into his eyes and sees something, and then just loses it, starts screaming. And she never told him what it was, but he knew that it took a toll on her. So that's kind of that little side story of like how this is, doing these things beats up on her, takes a toll on her. So then you cut to later on that night, and Brad is the like off-duty cop that they have with them. He hears something, looks outside, doesn't really see anything, and turns around when he hears somebody say, "Look what you made me do." And then he's like, what the fuck? And he turns around, and then it's like right in his face. Look what you made me do! Screams in his face, so he's freaking out. That's kind of like, that starts the night of crazy shit, because then almost immediately, the little girl Cindy, who's, I think she's the one that's been sleepwalking, right? She's walking upstairs, and like they see her doing it, she's sleepwalking again. So they like, yeah, don't touch her, we might be able to get a picture of what's going on here. So she kind of walks up the stairs on her own, and, goes into a room, and then the door slams shut. You don't see anything with her, but you assume that something's, kind of forcing her to do this.
Guiding her. Or something.
Yeah. So they go into the room, and she's not in there. And then they eventually search around, and they find her, like, there's like a little hole in the wall behind that closet, and she's up in there. So Lorraine goes in to kind of, like, look around, and then she sees, like, it's like a dusty shelf, and there's a spot that's perfect for that little music box. So that's clearly where this music box has been sitting all these years. And I guess she got it out of there, or maybe somehow, the ghost gave it to her or whatever the hell. But that's where it's been all these years. And she finds this dusty noose in there on the shelf too. And then right when she's kind of looking at that, like she falls down. It's kind of hard to describe like where she falls. Like I guess she falls down between the walls, or because I don't think she goes all the way down to the cellar, right? She just like the floor gives out, and she just kind of
falls inside the house, like it's into the walls of the house.
Yeah. But it's like in between. I guess maybe down towards the foundation or something. I don't know, but it's in the walls. Mm-hmm. And then she hears laughter or whatever, and then she picks up that music box. She sees a woman, like she's looking in the mirror of that music box, and she sees a woman like holding a kid who's like, it's like a dead kid, and she's just crying, or kind of like half crying, half laughing. And she says, or she sees it, and then it was a pretty cool scene when the ghoul, or whatever, the ghost, whatever the hell it is, it kind of slowly turns around and looks at her, as she's looking at her in the box, and she turns around and it's not there. She turns around at where it was behind her, and it's not there. And she turns around, and then it's screaming in her face, "She made me do it!" And then so it's obviously she's freaking out. And then she turns to see, like she's hiding underneath something or looking underneath something, and then she sees a woman hanging, like feet dangling, like it's hanging. And then that's when she hauls ass out of there, as one should definitely do, and should have done days before this, but whatever. Then you cut to like she goes back upstairs or whatever, and then Nancy, one of the girls, gets pulled around the room by her hair, like something clearly grabs her hair and just like slinging her around the room. It's like she literally takes like a pair of scissors and cuts her hair off to get her loose. And then that's when they're all getting the hell out of here now. And
now it's a good idea.
Yeah, I think basically now, like, all right, well, now we have enough evidence. We can get the Catholic Church to get an exorcism on this house, and now we're getting the fuck out of here. So they load up all the girls in a car to get the fuck out, and then the Warrens go, all right, we're gonna go develop this film and get the evidence to the church. And while they're doing all that, like, Lorraine is down by the water, and she sees her daughter Judy in the water, like almost like floating in the water. So then she runs back in the house and calls her mom to check on her, and she's fine. So clearly, I guess it's just the demon fucking with her because they're in this house, So the parents go off to a hotel, and then the Warrens go, show this footage to. They go to a church and show this footage to a priest, who agrees to I'll speed up the process and get the Vatican to check this out because they see how serious this is. Then you cut to Judy, the Warren's daughter at the Warren's home. She wakes up, and of course she goes to the evil room, and she looks in, and then I'm not sure if it was, not sure if she noticed it or not, but Annabelle was gone. When she looks in the room, you can see Annabelle's not in that case. She's gone. Mm-hmm. Then eventually she goes into another room and gets locked in the room, and then there's somebody sitting there like in a rocking chair holding Annabelle, and then Annabelle's head turns slowly to look at her. And then she starts screaming. Then the Warrens, of course, come home and bust in the door. And then the rocking chair that Annabelle was in, gets launched across the room. And the dad, Ed, just picks her up just in time, and it doesn't hit her. Then they go, and she says something about Annabelle, so they go into the evil room, the room, to see. And then Annabelle's still in the case, like nothing happened. So clearly, some high level fuckery is going on here.
And here again, like, I guess they didn't have the rights to use the Raggedy Ann doll. Mm-hmm. But, like, even though, like, the Annabelle doll that they use is creepy as hell, I think if I'd have saw, like, a Raggedy Ann whose, like, neck is stiff starting to turn, damn, that would have been scary.
Yeah. With that creepy, like, sewn-in smile with the button eyes.
Meanwhile, Raggedy Ann doll sales plummet as a
which is what we discussed in the Annabelle episode. I'm sure that's the reason. If for no other reason than that, I'm sure they wanted to have nothing to do with it. So anyway, now the parents are at the hotel. I think the dad shows back up, and then the other girls are like, "Hey, mom just left, and she took Christine and April with it. The two younger girls. She took them, or two of the younger girls. She took them with her. So like to go back to the house. So like, oh shit, now we all got to go to the house." So they go back to the house, which is, way down on the list of things you should probably do in this situation. But I guess, in this scenario where she's clearly taking two girls back to the house, I guess you probably should. So they go back, and of course they find Carolyn down in the cellar with the girls, and she's about to like stab one of them. I think the youngest one or whatever. No, she's got Christine. I'm sorry. She's got a hold of her, and then they kind of wrestle her away, and they're holding on to her. And then they grab a hold of Carolyn, the mom, and they're trying to get her out of the house. And then, like, as they're approaching the front door, like, her skin starts burning. So it's like, the demon's got a hold of her and won't let her leave. And then she kind of, like, gets loose and then, like, gets drugged all the way back down into the cellar again. So they run back down there, and she's down there, like, full-on, like, exorcist demon, demoning out down there in the cellar. The Warren's assistant, Drew, he's in other parts of the house looking for April. She got missing during the melee. So then back to the cellar, they tie Carolyn down to a chair, and Ed Warren decides to perform the exorcism, even though he's not necessarily qualified to do it. This is a serious situation, so he's decided to go ahead and do it.
He decided, hold my beer.
Demons ain't got shits on me.
I seen this done once or twice, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm good.
I guess in this situation, he's been through a few of them. I guess he figures he's as qualified as the next guy to do it, right? So,
I mean, it's just reading out of this book, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is this Latin terms? I
mean, if the movie Monster Squad has taught us anything, it's reading out of books to demons and monsters. It's pretty easy.
Hey, Bruce Campbell can do it. Wait a minute, no, Bruce Campbell can't.
Yeah, no.
Klaatu Verata necktie.
Necktie. So then you cut to there's some birds outside. It's like almost like they're flocking to the house, and they're just flying into the house and like busting through windows and stuff like that. They're just ramming themselves into the house. Then back down the cellar, Carolyn starts to levitate in the chair. Like she's sitting in the chair, she starts to levitate. So she's floating up, and then the chair flips upside down, and like the chair's like sitting on the ceiling. Then of course it falls down, like she falls flat on her back. The chair busts, but now she's loose out of the chair. Then you cut back to Drew. He's still looking for April throughout the house, and he finds her like she's done crawled under the floorboard some damn how. Either she got put there or she's found a hole.
Hiding there somehow.
Yeah, somehow she's got under.
At any rate, Drew like yells it out. I found her, and then
yeah. He's like, hey, I found her under here. And then that's when Carolyn, who just got out of the chair,
she's under the kitchen floor.
Yeah, she's in the cellar, so she basically just crawls under the floorboards to go find her ass. So then that's when kind of like they kind of corner Carolyn up, and then she's struggling. She's clearly like trying to fight the demon inside. They're kind of like helping the process along. The Warrens and her husband and everything. And then finally, it's like the demon lets go. She basically just throws it back up, which I wouldn't think, a demon letting loose would be that easy, right? Just fight it a little bit and throw it up. It's over. We're all good.
Yeah, no, like the
seems like there'd be a little bit more of a fight.
Yeah, and usually it goes into somebody and they die or something. If you learn anything from the Exorcist movies.
Yeah. If you learn anything from other movies that are similar to this, somebody usually dies, but not in this one.
Yeah.
And she basically just yaks it up. So really all she needed to do in the end was stick her finger down her throat and the demon would be gone. But so then like the next morning, like they're all leaving out, like, it's the happy ending or whatever. And parents, I guess, go their separate way and the Warrens go on back home. Then it shows Ed putting that music box into the, the evil room. Like he's adding it to the collection. And then you see on the screen, diabolical forces are formidable. These forces are eternal and they exist today. The fairy tale is true. The devil exists, God exists, and for us as people, our very destiny hinges upon which one we elect to follow. And that was a quote from Ed Warren. Then you see once again after that the music box is playing and it's spinning, and it's once again it's the same deal. You're kind of leaning in like, oh fuck, what are we going to see? And the music stops and it kind of pauses there for a minute, and then that's it. It just goes.
Yeah, and right there where it did that, like. I paused it and rewound it. And I was like, "Did I miss something?"
Yeah, no. I guess it's once again, it's just trying to get you to lean in, so you're really paying attention, and then maybe that last little jump scare with the the little sound effect. That's pretty much it. And then it shows some real pictures of the Perrin family and Ed and Lorraine Warren and their daughter Judy, and then you pretty much that's it. You have the end credits. That is the beginning of the Conjuring Universe franchise. From 2013, The Conjuring. All right, so as we usually do here, we give a star rating. So, Will, what's your star rating on The Conjuring?
Yeah, I'm going to give this one a 4. I thought this was a real solid movie all the way through. Definitely had you sitting on the edge of your seat, trying to see what was happening next. So, yeah, I loved it. What about you, Smoke?
Yep, I saw it. Like I said, this is the third time now I've seen it. It grows on you each time, I think. It's bears repeat viewings. First time I liked it a lot. The second time, maybe even exponentially more. I'm looking forward to watching it again sometime. Probably pull it out another year or so and give it another watch. I think it builds on the paranormal genre. It doesn't. I mean, it plays around with the same stereotypes, but I think it ups the ante in certain areas. I give it a solid 1 star. No, I'm kidding. I give it 4 as well. I think it's great. I think it's a great modern masterpiece, so to speak.
I think this doesn't happen very often, but I think I'm going to totally agree. I give it 4 stars. So 4 stars across the board. I think it hits every note it wants to hit. It's not a gory movie, but it doesn't have to be, obviously. I mean, there's a couple moments, but not many. It's visceral in that way. It kind of scares you in other ways. I mean, there's a lot of cheap jump scares and stuff.
Yeah,
but
it doesn't get derivative either, which is it's just strange that it plays with all the same tropes that horror movies have been playing with since the silent era, almost. When it comes to haunted house type movies, if you want to call it that, ghost, demonic possession stuff.
Yeah, but
still manages to be original in its own way, even though it's using those same horror stereotypes and cheap jump scares and everything.
Yeah. I think that the one element of this that's different from a lot of those movies is the fact that it's the Warrens, and I think
True.
You alluded to earlier, Will, that they kind of played it from their perspective,
right,
as opposed to the family's perspective. I think that's what kind of sets it apart from a lot of these movies that are very similar. I I've seen it. I know I've seen it 3 times. I'm pretty sure I've seen it 4 times now. See, and I enjoy it every time. I'm like, it doesn't get old to me.
Something I'll say about this movie is like in a day and age where like everybody's trying to do more and more like CG green screen stuff. Mm-hmm. Like this was awesome because I feel like for a good majority of the movie, it just went the other way. Like, here, spooky stuff's going on, but it's implied. And they just got the right group of people to act this out, and man, it really just brought it home.
It's well written, it's well casted, it's well acted, it's well directed. I mean, it hits a lot of the marks that any good movie does. I don't know if this is like an Oscar-worthy type picture, but as far as horror Oscars are concerned, it's pretty high up. Like. If there's such a thing, like and
it wasn't a damn remake, at least.
that too. Like once
in this day and age,
once we alluded to earlier, with the that was like what the original R-rated, one of the highest original R-rated movies, gross or whatever. So that tells you that it's astonishing what original material will get. It's not always a hit, but just give us some new ideas, some fresh ideas. Some new perspectives on old stuff, and it will do well, as long as you don't get stupid, stay practical, I think that's one of the lessons that this will teach you. Like, it doesn't have to be over the top gore, it doesn't have to be, high CG or anything like that. Just keep it practical and keep it down to earth a little bit, and you'll see success. And that's this one has seen plenty of it, and the movies that have followed it. And I don't see an end to this anytime soon, as long as they keep cranking them out like they have. Maybe pretty soon we can dive into, sooner or later we can dive into The Conjuring 2 and some of the other movies. We can kind of keep this series going, because I think we've all enjoyed it so far, through watching the first 2. So I guess with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. You guys got anything to add before we lock up shop?
I'm good. You smoke?
No, I'm good.
I guess we'll go ahead.
Please replace the speaker on its rack when you're ready to leave. Failure to do so will damage both the speaker and your car. We'll be grateful, and so will the patrons who follow you.